Before we get started today, I got to give a big shout out to Open Fortune. I will say I've been pitching myself every moment today, being in the Museum of Ice Cream, recording a podcast with the word fuck in it. On top of that, to having a fortune cookie sponsor and talking to higher ed marketers. It's been a great hell of a day, and you're our last one of the day, and I'm stoked, but I'm also stoked to also hear your story and just really, dive in and talk about things maybe you haven't talked about in a while. So without further ado, shout out to Open Fortune for putting this on and being one of the world's creative ad platforms, reaching 99% of zip codes, 47,000 restaurants, reaching people where they feast in a really creative and interesting way. And more on them later, but before we do that, let's get into the podcast. Today, we're joined by Molly Swagler, a multifaceted professional whose career spans an impressive array of roles and industries. Molly's academic foundation was laid at West Texas A&M University with a BA in Mass Communication and Journalism, followed by a Master of Arts in Media and Communication Studies from FSU. Molly's career trajectory is as diverse as it is impressive. She began out in the world of broadcast journalism, first as a reporter and producer for KFDA, then as an anchor and reporter for KVII-TV, and later a reporter for KVUE-TV. Transitioning from media to a different spotlight, she became a regional manager for EMF Broadcasting and delved into public affairs at Florida State University Communications. Her career then took an international turn with a stint as a university professor in Ukraine with the Peace Corps. Molly's creative also shown through her work as a freelance director, writer, and talent in multimedia production. Following her diverse experiences, Molly ventured into the world of tourism as a VP at the Tourism Leadership Council in Georgia. She further honed her skills in academia at the Savannah College of Arts and Design, ultimately becoming their student director of international student services. Now, Molly is making her mark at the University of Pittsburgh as the assistant vice provost for enrollment and executive director of enrollment outreach, a role she's been dedicated to for over 4 years. So, Molly, how the fuck did you get that job?
That's impressive that you pulled all that together. That's really great. It was, how did I get that job?
Yeah.
It was, that's an interesting, when you put it all together like that, it really sounds like, what did I do to get this? And I will tell you, this job that I'm in now came about because my sister talked to somebody at a basketball game.
That's like most stories. That's where you go to network, right? We're at a conference, but you really got to be going to, was it a high school basketball game?
It was a college basketball game, and I was living in Savannah, Georgia, and my sister was she had just moved to Pittsburgh, and she was at a basketball game and just struck up a conversation with somebody. She had been trying to get me to move to Pittsburgh. She's like, please come to Pittsburgh. I really want you there. And I was like, why? Why mess with the mojo? I've got something good here. And she said, I talked to this lady at a basketball game, and there's this position open, and I think you'd be amazing at it. It's like, all right. Well, it was just one of those where I just put it in on a Friday, and then later that day I got a call and said, can you be in Pittsburgh for an 11-hour interview where you present in front of people for this job?
Jesus, that is a long interview, and I've never even heard of an 11-hour interview.
Nor had I.
Yeah. I want to get to what you're doing at Pittsburgh, but I think we need to explain your story from the beginning to get to the basketball game where it happened. Right. So growing up, right, where'd you grow up?
In Amarillo, Texas.
Okay, and when you were in Amarillo, what were the childhood dreams, and when your first grade teacher asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was that answer?
Yeah, it was a cardiologist.
In first grade?
Yeah. I don't think I was using that word, but I was like, I definitely want to work with hearts.
Okay. What about hearts?
it was probably something that I saw on a Love Boat, show, and I was like, they seem like they have made it. If they're on a cruise with a Love Boat, I think I need to do this.
There you go.
This is my future.
And where did you realize that cardiologists might not be in your future?
Well, I was. None of my family had gone to college. I'm a first-gen college student. Actually, my mom and my sister and I kind of did college together.
Very cool.
I know. And so it was my sister, who's a little older than me. She's also the one that got me to Pittsburgh. she was the one who was like, you got to go to college, you got to do this. And so that's how I ended up.
And so when you're making that college decision process, right, now you're marketing to the college decision process, but for you, during that time, you're making that decision, everybody kind of makes it with their family, right, or loved ones or people they trust. You decided with your sibling as well as your mom.
Yeah.
What did that decision process look like?
Yeah. Okay. So then junior year of high school, I really wanted to get out of Amarillo, Texas, because it's Amarillo, Texas. And if you know where Amarillo, Texas is.
Where is it?
Northern part of Amarillo, it is so flat you can see the back of your head. And it's where it's a lot of really beautiful people, but it is a desert wasteland. And I say that with love to all of my friends in Amarillo right now. And I wanted to get out. So I applied to an Interlochen Arts Academy, which is a boarding school. Now, we grew up in a trailer park. We had no money.
Interlochen, like?
The Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan.
In Michigan, okay.
So I applied in my junior year to do senior year at Interlochen. I had never been out of Texas. This was not anything.
Friday Night Lights?
Yeah, it was, we were at football games, but that was it. And so I applied to go to Interlochen Arts Academy to study theater, because I had taken a class down at the community college after school, and this teacher was like, hey, there's this thing. And this was in the 90s. That was before internet, you could just, Google this. And so I just wrote off, sent a VHS tape of me doing a little interpretive dance that I've prepared for you today.
There you go.
And so we did this, and then I got in through a scholarship, and that's how I got out. So then I was like, oh, this is amazing. But I didn't really, theater was a lot of fun, but I really wanted to study journalism. It was the stories that kind of excited me.
And was the journalism, did you pick up just from watching the local news or reading the paper? What was your medium?
I pretended to be Walter Cronkite at my kitchen table for years.
So it was just in the blood?
Yeah. I would swoop the hair over, put on I was in my head Walter Cronkite.
And so how did you make that dream a reality? Obviously you ended up being in broadcast journalism for a while.
Yeah, so I studied at West Texas A&M University. They have a really great journalism program. And because it was local, it was affordable, it was all of those things. And so I studied journalism there, graduated in 3 years. And while I was there, I did an internship at KFDA. That's what you mentioned in the first part. That's the CBS affiliate there. And they put me on air when I was 20.
And you walk in the newsroom, right? What was expectation versus reality when there's Roni ran the fire?
Yeah, so the expectation was, newsrooms are a little competitive in terms of everybody's fighting for the top story of the day. And so when you walk into the newsroom at 20 as an intern, they're like, here's a story about a model train. Can you make this interesting? And so I was like, oh, bring it on, let's go. And so then it was about going and using curiosity to go and find an interesting story out of a model train exhibit.
Sure. And so do you remember the first time being on air?
Oh yeah, I was terrified. And my voice was really high because I was very young and I was so nervous. Oh, it was, yeah.
Do you have a recording of that still?
Probably in my basement somewhere. On Beta. Do you remember Beta? No, it's okay.
Do you remember Beta?
Look, I'm showing my age. It's okay.
So what was Beta? You gotta just, we could scrap this part, but I want to know what Beta was.
Beta is, it's a format. You probably know what this is, what a Beta is. It's everything's digital now, but before you would actually put video on tapes.
Oh,
and so it was
VHS.
But it was better. It was before VHS. It was Beta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They rebranded or got a better version of it.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So you end up telling your first news story, and you're high pitched.
Yeah.
So how did you go about learning and kind of owning your craft?
Great mentors, and so some of the people in the newsroom would be like, hey, next time you do this, lower your voice, or next time you do this, cheat over this way, or instead of starting with a story that talks about facts and figures, start with a human element.
And how do you go about taking that criticism constructively? Were you just all ears?
Oh yeah, no, well, it was hard at first. I would get handwritten letters about my eyebrows and how bad they are. And I didn't even know because I was like, they're just eyebrows.
Just from random
randos. I had love letters from the prison. I had the fire department would see what I was wearing every day, and they'd be like, I noticed that you.
I guess it's small town, so there's not much going on, right?
Yeah.
So you're the
right.
You're the face
you're
of the town.
You're the face, yeah.
That's wild.
It was fun. It was really fun.
What was the biggest thing you learned from like just, you know, working in these small or like news outlets and being an anchor?
The curiosity will get you a long way if you ask questions humbly, and then you can get a long way and get a story.
And how do you go about, because there is that competitive nature, right? I went to Syracuse. A lot of people study broadcast journalism. It's a fight. It's a dog fight, right? Like, and sometimes it can get ugly. Like, how do you differentiate yourself, but also like stay, you know, neutral with everybody?
Yeah.
You know?
And like still be a human, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Syracuse is a really great J school, by the way.
Thanks.
So I had to figure out how to get a job, and I think this is kind of the nature of this podcast. So I really wanted to get a job at KVUE, which is the ABC affiliate in Austin, Texas. And so
the big city.
Yeah, big city. And I was like, how do I do this?
Where you're not going to get all the.
You're not. There's going to be like it's there's a 500 people vying for one spot, right? One general assignment reporter. And so I went down and I met with the news director, because I had an inside of somebody that used to work there, and they were like, it just happened to take me on a tour, and I just happened to be like, oh, well, I just happen to have this tape right here, and to make all this connection. And bottom line, the news director said, you look and sound too young, so I'm so sorry, this is not for me. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is a challenge then. If it's not the storytelling chops, if it's just that I look young. So I got out my typewriter and I wrote a letter and I said, dear news director, I have taken up smoking and I've stopped sleeping, and I am now looking a lot older. Yeah, I was like, and I did it as a tongue jest, and I said, in all seriousness. Were you actually doing it? No, I really did, and I wrote the letter.
No,
and I said,
were you actually?
No, I know, but it was like, and then I said, in all jest, just because of the way I look doesn't mean I can't tell a story. Here are story ideas that I have for your newscast today. And then every day I would send another story idea. And I'd be like, here's something that I think would be a really good story.
And just leave it at the front door, or just email?
Yeah, I would mail it or email it. We did have email back then. Yeah. And so I would send off the story idea, and then every once in a while he'd take my call, because I'd also just call and be like, hey, I have this story idea I want to run you by. And he would take my call every once in a while. And he had a conversation about Dr. Pepper, so I would like send him a case of Dr. Pepper. And I mean, I'm making $5 an hour. Like, it is nothing. But I was like, I'm going to get a job.
But a lot of people want that role, right?
And I got it.
You need to separate yourself somehow. Yeah. How long did you go doing those things and telling him, like, I'm smoking 1 pack a day, I'm smoking 2
That was
packs
just
a
one.
day.
It was just one, so he would read the letter.
Sure. But like, how many like letters, or the duration of time before he was like, all right, I'll give in?
It was an 8-month campaign.
Damn.
Yeah.
Talk about like creating a job for yourself.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
That's like what I was looking for
before,
and telling you is it's not just necessarily like I applied on LinkedIn, I wrote a cover letter, I got the job, right? So that shows like your grit, and also like I'm sure you brought that into a lot of work. I want to talk about real pause. I want to get your career trajectory right.
Okay.
Florida State before Peace Corps?
Yes.
Okay. So you end up going to the Seminoles, right? Florida State. What about higher ed and that university in specific made that the right place for you?
It was my sister again.
Okay. We've been following her around.
She's a really great person and a comedian. So she's really funny. But she said, come, because I left news.
Was there a reason you wanted to head out of news?
Yes. Yeah, I was covering a story. I was on the grief beat. Have you heard of grief beat?
I get the gist.
You have to talk to people who have lost somebody, or who have had somebody that has caused a loss in their life. And so you never know how people are going to handle
real
grief.
uplifting stuff.
Really uplifting stuff. And so we jokingly called it the grief beat, because that was a way of us dealing with having to have these conversations with people. And I was covering a story.
You signed on to be a therapist.
Yeah, right. And people laugh, they cry.
Sure.
So you never know what you were going to get or what you're going to kind of come into. And a particular story that I came across, they handled it with anger, and so they pulled a gun, and I had this hot-headed photographer, and they started fighting, and so I had to de-escalate fast. And this is not uncommon to be in compromising positions whenever you're doing news, but I had to sort of it was not on air. This was just us getting the B-roll getting the video there. So I was de-escalating the situation when I just went into I walked away. I was like, I have to walk away, and I thought he's going to shoot me in the back of the head. And so the last thing I see, it was a beautiful morning, the smell of clover. It was like lovely, and I got in the car and I called the news office, and I was like, here's what happened. I'm on my way back. I've got this story, and they said, awesome. We're sending the SAT truck at top of the 6. And so then I was like, oh, I have a real problem with wanting to tell stories that change people, yeah. But now he's a part of the story in a way that his grief in that moment affected him. And I was like, this is not really what I want to do. I couldn't leave right away, so I made some plans to kind of get out.
Yeah, I mean, when people show you their true colors, believe them. So, I mean, I think you did that, and that's a wild story, and I'm glad that we're here talking today, but that's a little traumatizing too.
Yeah.
So that was the moment.
Yeah, and then I went and lived in Scotland on a farm and lived with a family, and they made beer, and I delivered beer and picked up their kids from school, and it was amazing.
So how'd you get into that?
Willing workers for organic farming.
Was it like wolf?
Yeah, wolf. I did wolf. I just
wolf?
I looked it up and I was like, okay, this is somebody had said like, oh, you should try this, sort of clear the palate. It was about 3 months. Yeah. Great. So after news, I did WOLF, which is the worldwide organization on Okay, hold on. Thank you. Okay. So after news, I did WOLF, which was the worldwide organization on organic farms, which is we call it WOLF for short. And I just signed up for it, and I was connected with a farm in Munlochy, Scotland.
So essentially, WOLF, you volunteer your time, they give you housing and food, right?
Right,
and you kind of just hang out. So you were just making beer in Scotland?
Yeah, I worked on the farm, feeding the animals every day, painting the barn, cleaning the chicken coop, making beer, delivering it, picking up the kids and groceries, that sort of thing.
So how long did you do that for?
3 months.
3 months. What did you learn from that, whole
The world is a lot bigger than
local news?
Than local news.
In Texas?
Yes. It's wild.
That's awesome. I know a couple of people who've done WOOF. I know it's mostly in on farms and stuff, but there is I found out, and we can cut this or keep this, but there's only one WOOF opportunity in New York City.
Oh.
And it's the weirdest, kind of grossest thing. It's pigeons. There's a pigeon farm in Harlem that you hang out with hundreds of pigeons.
Racing pigeons?
No, pigeons from Central Park, wild pigeons to support the pigeon. It's a wild, gross, nasty. I was like, if I'm gonna ever do it, it would be something like that.
That would be right.
Not I'm gonna shoot up to Morningside and feed some pigeons. But anyway, so you learned that the world was a lot bigger, a lot bigger. And then at some point you decided that making beer in Scotland and woofing wasn't.
Yeah, it was never the long-term plan. It was really a palate cleanser on getting out of news. And then, of course, my sister called again. And so there I was in Florida State University working there in their public affairs office.
And what was that like? What did you bring from news and your learnings from WOOF to Tallahassee? Yeah,
they wanted me to produce a daily news broadcast. For the radio, the NPR affiliate there at WFSU. And so I did that, and it was really fun to tell the stories of the amazing academics at Florida State. And
did you start to get the itch then for academia?
Yes,
a little bit?
Yes.
What about the culture there and just the higher ed field really spoke to you?
Yeah, I love higher ed for so many reasons. I mean, you're talking about students who are beginning their journey and their life. It is an opportunity for them to go and do big and great things, but you're also have people who are at the top of their field in whatever research or aspect that they may be studying. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's a magical place.
Yeah, I'm learning that from just interviewing all these cool, amazing people. So you end up going to the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
That's a bigger requirement of time, right? Than just a WOOF, and it's at least 2 years, right?
That is right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what made that the right choice for you after Florida State?
I did this in all of so I started teaching there as well as an adjunct, and in my classes I would do a community assignment, so go do something in the community, and so we would have community partners come and talk to the class about here's some things that we're doing, and so Peace Corps volunteer, and I was like, hey, I should also do something for my community. And he was very persuasive, and so I signed up.
Yeah, and they have good salesmen going
really
around.
Great
All
recruiters.
around college campuses.
Yes.
I know I got approached. But I have to say too, like, and you get to decide, right,
yes.
where you go?
Well,
it's not like Teach for America?
Well, a little bit. It is a little bit like Teach for America because you are willing and able, and then they say, like, here's some regions you can accept or deny, but you don't really.
So you
get to
don't
pick.
really, you weren't like, you didn't sign up just for Ukraine.
No.
Okay, I say expectation versus reality, but of that whole experience, like what are you looking to learn, and what did you end up learning?
I thought I was going to go and help a community, but really I learned a whole lot more than I think I gave back to the community. It was fascinating to be in Ukraine 2008 through 2010. At a time when the Orange Revolution was just a couple of years off from the Orange Revolution, so freedom of press was new in the country, relatively new in the country, and so there's a lot of discussion in colleges and universities in Ukraine about this idea of freedom of press, and so the embassy there did some really cool policy kind of talks and things like that, just to sort of get professors talking about
what's
it.
the biggest difference in culture when it comes to careers, but also just life in general, Ukraine versus, Florida and Texas?
Oh, so many differences, so many differences. The people are so nice in Ukraine. It was the people were
I would say people are nice in the South as well, but what's the difference in the kind of nice?
Okay. Okay, all right. So in the South, we have what you call bless your heart nice. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds religious, but is it?
Well, no. It's like let me give you an example. I would be like, bless your heart. That's a really nice shirt you have on. Like, and it's not. It's a almost a saccharine sweet sort of comment. Bless your heart is
okay.
Sort of saccharine sweet. So lacks a little authenticity.
Okay.
In Ukraine, you are getting a lot more authenticity. Yeah. So you get the kindness, but authenticity.
Because it's like bless your heart, like a T-shirt or whatever. It's
Like
say nice shirt, if anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just fascinated by cross-cultural exchange and like that. I've never been to Ukraine, or not obviously, but that's awesome that you had that opportunity. So after 2 years, you probably had the opportunity to extend or go home.
Mm-hmm.
What made it the right decision for you to come back to stateside?
Yeah, I went back. I was on the list for Foreign Service and to join the Foreign Service, and so I went back to await the next class or whatever. And then I fell in love with a boy and got married and had 2 kids. And now we're here. Yeah, and now we're here.
So I guess how has just having a family taught you about being a better worker, but also a mother?
Yeah. Oh, it's there's being a mom has taught me a lot about that I'm really not in control of anything. I'm just along for the ride.
That's a great answer. And I have to ask, do you have like a cute meet cute?
What is that?
A meet cute is like how you met.
Oh yeah, we met the old-fashioned way on online.
I use that line all the time.
Yeah, it's a good line.
I met my partner online.
Yeah. So my sister, oh my gosh, all roads lead back to Melanie White. She's a Pittsburgh-based comic. So she joined Match.com after I got back from Ukraine, and I did not know that she did that. She just signed me up and started winking at people. And then she was like, oh, guess what? You have a date tonight. And I was mad.
So your
first.
sister really hooks it up. What's her name?
Really, Melanie White.
All right, shout out Melanie.
I know, yeah.
Pretty cool.
You can check her out.
Yeah. We might have to have her on the podcast.
Yeah, she's hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you end up coming back. You end up working in the tourism department.
Yeah.
In Georgia. Why not higher ed yet? Or did you always have a feeling you were going to go back?
Yeah, I always wanted to go back to higher ed. That was really fun. But it was tourism was a one of those where we were moving to Savannah for my husband's job. And so then I was like, oh, I guess I have to get a job too. That's sort of what it is. And it was one of those where they needed an an assistant, like part-time assistant or something. So I signed up, and then I was like, you need this and this and this, and then ended up becoming vice president.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And then you end up going to SCAD.
Yes.
And SCAD's a very interesting place.
It is,
I've
yeah.
had cousins who went to SCAD and have had a wonderful time.
It's
Definitely
such
a
a cool
different
place.
college experience.
It is, yeah. But oh my gosh, that is also a magical place too because of the creativity.
And what were you doing there?
So I was the senior director over all of the international student services and students. So we had about 5,000 international students. There were 4 campuses at that time, and so the international students would come from all over the world to study in Savannah or Atlanta.
Very cool.
They needed somebody just to kind of look out for how that international student, how they acclimate, how they get involved in school and in the American school system and everything else.
And I'm sure that you used your time in Scotland and Ukraine to
Absolutely.
really relate to these kids. Do you have any great stories of just like people you met or things you did at SCAD that really stood out?
Yeah, my favorite was doing orientation. So every year, new students coming from all over the world, and the parents from different cultures would come. So my favorite were Indian families, because the whole family would come and you would meet mom, dad, grandparents. They would bring you gifts, and then they would have your phone number and they would call you later to like check on their kid and make sure that they're eating and they're doing their laundry because they're not used to doing their own laundry. And so it was just really fun to
Indian
kind of
weddings
get to
are
know.
also the best.
Oh, they're amazing. So that was the magic, was the
Very,
people,
very
families.
cool.
Yeah.
So it's time to land the plane. I finally got back to the basketball game. Your sister calls you out.
Yeah.
What's the scene?
So she is, she's at this basketball game. She goes, you got to check this out. It is, it's in enrollment and admissions. And so I was like, okay, I've never done this before. She said, but they're looking for somebody who specializes in marketing. That was kind of the area where they really wanted to kind of focus on. I was like, okay, that I can do. That's good. And so, like I said, called on, or sent the email on Friday. On Tuesday, they said, come to Pittsburgh. There was a breakfast meeting, and then there were separate interviews with different teams with a presentation at like 3 p.m. in front of like 100 people. And I had to prepare this presentation and kind of think of something that would be interesting and memorable. And then it finished off with another couple of meeting groups, like interviews, and then dinner. So it was all 3 meals.
Was that your first 11-hour?
First time to ever have an 11-hour.
When they sent you that, were you just like, what the?
I was alarmed. But I was like, okay, if they're going to give me this much time, I mean, usually like as marketers, we're always fighting for time.
You didn't think it was a scam, like this podcast?
I did think this was a scam. No, I thought, well, I didn't think I had a chance at the job. So.
And then when did you realize you had that chance?
I nailed it. Yeah, I got there and I was like, I connected with people, the questions that they were asking, it was just amazing.
So when they brought you on, what were some of the pain points that they were feeling at Pitt? Because I mean, Pitt is everybody knows about it, right? It has such a great brand. But what were they looking for you to accomplish?
So they needed more applications. They wanted to see more students apply. They wanted to reimagine the visit experience and think about, we have 90,000 people who come and visit University of Pittsburgh just to check it out every year. And then we had a marketing team that was small and needed to grow and sort of develop in its own, and a new channel, Marketing Cloud, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, to kind of navigate that too.
What have you found that's really worked, and what have you doubled down on?
What has worked the most? Like what tactic has worked? Okay, we have, and I just met there was a guy at the conference, and he was like, hey, I went to Pitt. And I said, okay, why? It's always the question, like, why did you choose Pitt? Because he's from LA. He goes, there was this video that you sent, and it like made all the difference. And I knew exactly which video it was. It was a personalized video where it takes somebody through a movie trailer of their life in Pittsburgh with them as
Very
POV.
cool.
And then we have like the name come up. And so it says like, congratulations on your spot, where you're from, and all this kind of stuff. So it goes into this really
very, very cool
personal touch.
And what are you most excited about with what you're working on today?
Today's issues are like people issues, like trying to manage and maintain the team and
Sure.
all the things that go along with that, because I have the most amazing team and I want to make sure that they
Give us some shout outs.
I know Aaron Black McIntyre, who's the Director of Marketing Communications, looking at you. You're amazing. I just want to support them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about your career and all your travels and all that good stuff. What's something you're super just proud of with your personal life and just like any hobbies? Molly as a person. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Molly as a person. Yeah, I love, I have two amazing kids who keep me really busy. So that's my life outside of work.
There you go. And
Yeah.
what are they up to?
My daughter, they're into everything that is writing, storytelling, theater, singing, anything that is all about the show. And they're amazing.
There you go.
Yeah,
I think
Calvin and my son is all about destruction and then rebuilding.
Destruction and rebuilding.
Yes.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he has fun doing it, I'm
Of
sure.
course.
Before we enter the lightning round, we got to give a big shout out to Open Fortune. Open Fortune has one of the most world's creative ad platform, where people actually are getting ads when they are about to think about their future. There was actually a funny article that came out 2 days ago. When this comes out, it'll probably be like 3 weeks ago. But from a student at Idaho State, a prospective student who was thinking about playing volleyball at multiple different locations, especially across the country from Idaho. And she's got a fortune that said you don't have to go far to see success. And that made her stay at Idaho State. For real, just happened yesterday. So shout out to her, shout out to Idaho State, and shout out to the fortune cookie for making that magic happen. So let's open these bad boys and see if it had anything to do with what we just spoke about.
Do you eat the fortune cookie?
I do, because I want to stay on brand. So it's turned into
good.
my snack at
Yes.
when I'm home and working. But I've ate so many that then I've stopped, I'm okay, I need my taste palette, I need to clean it. So what about you?
You're gonna, no, I don't eat the fortune cookie.
Do you open them?
But I do open them,
Okay.
of course,
Yeah.
and follow them. But okay, Peyton, I'm so sorry. I have to get my glasses because I'm pushing 50. What?
I think it's so funny that you thought that this was a scam. Yeah, she thought the podcast was a scam.
I did.
Oh, then I don't know.
I
I was like, yeah, we're at the Museum of Ice Cream, we're recording.
And it's a bunch of fellas, right? You know, and you're like, ooh, what is this?
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ooh. My numbers are 4, 9, 20. No, what is it? Are we reading it out loud?
Yeah, you go first.
You can run, but you can't hide.
There we go. And who's the brand on the back?
Duolingo, which is a Pittsburgh-based company.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Mine says you will soon discover exactly what you need. And Northern Arizona, go Lumberjacks.
Nice.
There we go. All right. So you open your fortune cookie every time?
Yes.
I'm the same way. You have to. I remember when I was a kid, when I was little, I would always dig the bag for the fortune cookies before eating the food, and I wouldn't eat them at the time, and I would just read what was going on.
Straight into it.
All right, rapid fire.
Okay, rapid fire. Here we go.
Person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with. I like those glasses, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sorry, Stephen looks so funny behind you.
Oh, you got it. He's got the thing. The person I would most want to,
Dead or alive?
Yeah. Tina Fey.
That's a good one. Favorite city in the world?
Pittsburgh.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
You do you.
That's such a middle, kind of. It's okay, but I don't approve. Favorite rom-com?
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Favorite place to travel internationally?
Ukraine.
In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
They will be nostalgic for podcasts.
What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Follow your heart.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Vast.
What's one thing people don't?
Word.
Yeah, that's it. Fast period is a sentence. You said that. Sorry. What's one thing that people don't understand about college marketing?
That it is, it's a hard experience for the consumer, that they're going through a lot right now.
I like that. Who's somebody you think should hop on this podcast?
I want to turn the tables and ask you a bajillion questions. So.
Well, I'll be here.
Okay, good.
I'll be here.
Okay, good.
Let's do it. In 10 years, where can we catch you?
I'll be in Pittsburgh, yeah.
There we go. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Molly,
okay.
Thank you so much
Thank you so
for
much.
bringing the energy.
Yeah.
I needed it. Let's have a good time at the Museum of Ice Cream.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Amazing.
This is really fun.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And not a scam.
Not a scam.
Not a scam.